I'm Carol. I'm with the Mexico Forestry Division, and I am actually the conservation seedling program manager there. And I got involved in the urban program when our urban forester left. And since I started with the project, I continued even though we do have a new urban forester now. So, um, as Fred said, it is a state project, and it is funded through U.S. Forest Service. Um, each of the participating states other than Texas had $50,000 to spend on urban tree improvement work. So we decided to spend all our money on seed, getting the seed to grow. So um, basically the purpose of the project is to get climate adapted seed distributed across, to participating states, and to build genetic diversity to sustain our future urban forest. And we're very arid, so um, we were looking for trees that can withstand all that. Um, and why we got involved was because we had started um, with a task force with the Nature Conservancy in Albuquerque to determine what we needed to do as far as developing or obtaining or deciding which were climate adapted trees, because our weather is getting hotter, and then in the urban areas it's compounded by the heat islands, asphalt, buildings, concrete, all that good stuff. So we needed trees that are known to survive in areas that are hotter than ours and or perhaps drier too. And we figured Texas was a good fit because if you look at our hardiness zones, you can see that Texas has zones that are further south than ours, but they also have some that are the same. We range everywhere from like 4 to 9. And of course, 4 is really hard to have much to grow there, but most of our urban areas are 5 down to 9. So it was a good fit. Now let's see. And I just wanted to talk about some of our urban areas. Our main very large city is Albuquerque, and it's very hot and dry. Um, and then we have one that's even worse down in the southern part of the state, which is Las Cruces, here in this little red area, big star. And then our state capital is Santa Fe, up here with the orange star. And I grew up, up here in Raton, which is the very far northern part of the state. And everywhere it has gotten hotter and drier. Not to say that our temperatures aren't still very cold. And last week we got down to 17. So where I currently live, it was about that in Santa Fe too, where I work. So we're having to look at climate adapted trees that are very heat tolerant, but also very cold tolerant, because our cold temperatures haven't gone away. They're not quite as cold as they used to be when I was growing up many, many years ago. We won't say how many. In Raton, it was typical to get, down below 0 many days of the winter. But now if we get down, a few times, that's more surprising. And we never got much above 90, and now 9,500 degrees in the summer are pretty normal. And that kind of, so as if you go further south in the state, it gets even worse. So our goals of the project were to obtain seed from the Texas Forest Service, and then we decided we wanted to have the seed grown out. So we had to select a nursery. And then the plan is to distribute these seedlings once they're grown to the municipalities, college campuses, and other public entities that have open space or public spaces where they can plant them to develop seed orchards. So our requirements for which seed we selected from Texas were heat and cold tolerance, drought tolerance, water requirements, since we're so uh, low on water and rain and snow around here. And we have horrible winds, so they have to have wind tolerance. And then our soils are very alkaline for the most part. And, we have caliche and heavy clay and, really sandy areas. So they have to have that. And then, of course, being in the urban conditions, they have to be tolerant of those. So, and we had to look at what plant hardiness zones do they grow in? Do they grow in the what we have in New Mexico? So the first one we selected was Shumard oak because it covers all but one of our hardiness zones, and it's drought tolerant, and it doesn't mind the compacted soils, and it's tolerant for pollution. So we thought, okay, that one works pretty good. And then we decided, okay, we have Western soapberry in our southern part of the state, so if we get them from Texas, they should even be tougher. So um, it doesn't quite cover quite as many of our hardiness zones, but a good range of them. And it's very wind tolerant and grows in a lot of different soils, drought tolerant, which is a must, and it's well suited to our urban areas. So that's another one we've decided to try. Okay, and our third species that we selected was the Texas redbud. A lot of our urban areas grow the eastern and the western redbuds, and in our task force that we were looking at climate adapted trees for Albuquerque, it was determined that the eastern actually grows better. So we said, okay, we'll do Texas redbud, and same thing. It grows in most of our hardiness zones, and it has very high heat tolerance, and it likes our alkaline soils, or at least it tolerates them. So that's a good thing. And cedar elm is one be honest, I don't know much about. So that was an interesting selection. Alyssa, our urban forester, said, hey, let's try this. So same thing, likes all those bad things we have, the soil. Tolerates our plant zones. So our next, I missed one. And this is another pretty one. We like the blossoms on it. This one isn't as good as far as our hardiness zones, but it fits Albuquerque, south. So that's a good thing. And it has high calcium carbonate tolerance, which is even better. So um, those were the species we selected. Our next steps in the process was, okay, if we've got our species selected, where are we going to have them grown? Well, we have a really interesting procurement process in New Mexico, so it's easier to have stuff grown by public entities. Otherwise, we go through a really big process finding private nurseries. And in New Mexico, there are very, very few private nurseries, and they're limited in space. So we said, okay, like I said, I am with the Conservation Seedling Program, and this is where I have the majority of our seedlings for that program grown. So, familiarity, know they have the knowledge and the nursing capacity, which, isn't just space, it's also staff. And they do a lot of tree improvement research for not necessarily urban trees, but all the ones we plant in our forests. So they have good experience in, keeping data and testing and progeny testing and all that good stuff. So we have a really good relationship with them. So this is who we decided to have our grow our seedlings. Uh, And if, in your states, if you have good private nurseries, fantastic. We keep trying to support ours, but they become fewer and fewer. And so we've had some bumps in the road, but we've kind of got past them. The first one was it took 3 years to get a good seed crop. So we have some Shumard oak that actually we got before that. So it's now 2 years old and ready to be distributed to willing municipalities and other partners to grow out, plant the trees and grow them. But all the rest of the species, we just finally got the seed and they are being propagated now. So be another 2 years before they're ready to go. So in that process, because it was a 3-year grant, and we asked for an extension from the regional office of the Forest Service Region 3 to see if we could grow them out, have the grant extended so that we could grow them out for a couple more years. So we got that extended. And then in order to keep, our relationship with the New Mexico State University John T. Harrington Research Center, because that contract ended at the same time, we extended it. So we are good to go. And perseverance. There's always a way around things if you have willing partners and they're willing to help you figure out all the whys and wherefores. So our next steps are, now that we're finally getting the trees planted out, so hopefully they will germinate and all those good things in the next 2 years and get the height and survivability. Right now, the nursery's taking germination and growth data on them. But then once we get them, we are taking applications from any willing partners that want to plant them out. And right now that we're looking at with the Shumard, at least to have more demo sites, so larger areas, but we could also have them planted along streetscapes and that stuff, and use those. But one of the requirements would be to collect data on the trees, mortality, survivability, how much they grew, where they're planted, is it south facing, north facing, next to a building, all that good stuff. And there's wonderful forms, like Fred said, to collect all that data. And then what we're hoping is this will allow us to select the best of what grows to have future collection of seeds. So we have seed orchards, and those we can either grow out at, on a state level, or municipalities that have greenhouses and stuff could grow them. And we're trying to figure out how also to get this seed to our retail nurseries, because right now most of what they bring in is from Oregon and elsewhere. So most of them, they get kind of tested in New Mexico, but they're not really regional seed sources. So that's our hope for that. And again, if anybody is interested in participating, from the state of New Mexico, you can contact our urban forester, Alyssa O'Brien, or you can also go to the website that's listed there, and there is actually an application with all the requirements on there, which includes staffing and maintenance and having a site plan and all that good stuff. But they are there, or you can contact me. That works also. Alyssa and I are in good contact, so it's not any problems. And I noticed, I remind me to talk about that. Yeah, the New Mexico Reforestation Center. I can tell you what I know at least. But I will wait for questions and answers then. So if any of you have questions, and we'll be taking those. And thank you so much for having me.